Can you share something that you learned through this process of creating this book, and something that you learned through the creation, something that you learned about the criminal justice system, and something that you learned about yourself? So 3 things, but it might end up being 1 thing. Ashley?
All right, so just to make sure I got it right. So something I learned about the criminal and justice system, also about myself, and what was the other one?
That you learned through something that you learned in general, the process of creating the book.
Okay, so I'll start with that one first. That one's the easiest. I learned that it's good to work with someone that knows what they're doing. And Iisha, again, I said she's a savant as it pertains to the creation of books and being able to make them public for folks. So I feel very fortunate in that regard, because we got a chance to lean on Iisha, and she got a chance to really showcase her skills, abilities, and her platform, which she's her network, in which she's created throughout the years of her being in publication and things of that nature. So if I were to give a piece of advice to anyone, if you're going to write a book and you're going to have folks write it with you, look for someone that has some experience, because it makes a huge difference. Because things we didn't even think of, like what the pages will feel like. I'm just thinking paper is paper. I didn't know, or text, or, flat versus, I still don't even know. So there you go. Something I learned about the criminal and justice system, and I know I'm saying that quote unquote incorrectly, but that's just the way I feel, the criminal and justice system. One thing that I learned about it throughout the process is that people, it hits everyone differently. However, because it could be regardless, some folks that wrote this were in jail, other folks were in prison, and some folks had a mixture of the two. And I feel as though I know, jail, you're only there for a certain amount of time, or you're being processed, so forth and so on. And in prison, it's, you typically have some, you've gotten your sentence and things of that nature. But I think one thing that I've learned about it was that people are impacted. They go through the system differently, but the outcome is still the same, if that makes sense, right? So the trauma they still receive trauma, they still get mistreated, abused, and also it makes you think to yourself. You can tell a lot about a country by its values, by the rules and regulations and laws in which it passes. So what I mean by that simply is you can look at the United States and see how they view people based on the laws and legislation as it pertains to folks that are on the inside, or folks that are being processed for a crime, all right, perceived crime. And then you start to think to yourself, I begin, as I'm reading the stories, as we're working together, and ask, are people looking for retribution, or are they really looking to heal people? So again, it's the thoughts between restorative justice or punitive justice. Is it because the person that may have been impacted by said crime is out of the picture. They make a call, make a complaint to the police, and then there's nothing given to them. There's no restorative matters, or that take place, and then now it's just you versus the state, or you versus the city, etc. And it begins to really make you think, who are we looking to appease, and what's the outcome? But regardless of where you land, within prison or within jail, you have to deal with that. And oftentimes you've been convicted before you've ever stepped foot in front of a judge. And those are things that I began to think of and realize and learn as we're going through this process. And lastly, what I've learned about myself is that the support of your team is imperative. Also, being communicative with your team is also imperative. To no fault of anyone else's, there was times in which I felt that as a contributor to the book, I would have loved to should just how you work on projects and you have so many different projects that you work on at a time, that it's tough to put those things in perspective, and you undermine or undervalue your bandwidth. And there was times where I felt like I could have shown up a little bit stronger at times, but luckily I have a great team and they carried me through. So just going forward, knowing how to prioritize assignments, knowing how to prioritize obligations and stuff that you do within the group, I think it's important. So sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, I mean, it was 3 questions, so thank you for giving them a very full answer. I appreciate that. Armando, do you want to share?
Do you mind just repeating the question again? It's what I learned about myself.
Yes. What you learned about yourself, what you learned about the criminal legal system, and just generally what you learned through the process of creating a book with a group.
I think, well, I don't think, what I know that what I learned from, the process of like, the criminal justice system, that, it's functioning the way that it was intended to function, right? If you see who are the folks that are being impacted the most, it's Black and brown folks. And I think it's very structural, and I think it's very telling of the society that we live in, but more specifically just, the way things are in the US, right? We're the highest country with incarceration, and who's reflected on that? Again, it's Black and brown folks. And I think for me, that's kind of what centers me in the kind of work that I want to do, in advocating for folks that are on the inside, but advocating also for folks on the outside. And I think when it comes in regards to, like, I guess the book, I would hands down give it down to Iisha. I think a lot of this work that we did could be attributed to Iisha, or is attributed to Iisha. She held it down and put most of us on check when we needed to be on check. And I really, really, really appreciate that, because I feel like, it was grounded. And I think we just had to reconvene again and make sure that, we communicated, touch bases. And I think in this process of creating the book, I think I really learned the value of communication and teamwork, like, to a different level. I mean, I've been in spaces, leadership spaces that, where you work in groups, right? And I think this was just very next level and very top notch. But also because I think a lot of that was because it was meaningful for the 3 of us, right? A lot of us, for the 3 of us, we're impacted by the carceral system. So I think that's kind of what, again, regrounded us to just make sure that we were producing something excellent, something dope. And it is dope. It's amazing. Like Iisha stresses, it's an amazing piece of work that, that's just dope. And I think, aside from Iisha, I think it's also the people that actually submitted that. Like, we have, like, yes, Iisha and myself and Ash are like the editors, or like, who put this together, but the co-creators are the folks that are on the inside and the folks that are on the outside, who were vulnerable enough to share their stories and their experiences, their trauma and pain, and just put it on paper, for folks to read, for folks to, to relate, to find that intersection of, that story, that one-liner, that artwork. And I think that, to me, is just something that just speaks very, very much to the book.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Iisha, do you need me to repeat the prompt? Okay, so through this process of creating the book, what is something that you learned about yourself? If there's anything you learned about the criminal legal system, and also generally through the process of putting the book together.
Wow. Well, thank you guys for those amazing, I guess, pats, because I will say that this project for me is more than a project. It's real life for me. As Armando said, all 3 of us being impacted, it just was different. It wasn't just something that we were going to do and just throw to the side. I always had a vision for this a little bit. We all did, in terms of taking this on and this being kind of like our legacy project. So for me, something that I learned about myself is that I can do hard things. You know, I can step up in a leadership position, not only when it's necessary, but just period. You know, when we first decided to do this book, I was not on board with it, just because I've worked in publishing for 15 years and I know what it takes to publish a book and go through all the processes. So I wasn't really interested in that. But once we decided to do it, you know, I knew that I was going to take it very serious, and I knew that, you know, I wanted it to be great. We all did. So taking that leadership role, at times I didn't like it, you know, but I enjoyed the process of just connecting with the individuals that participated, because as Armando said, yes, we are the editors. We are the people that gave them the space, but this book belongs to the people, you know, to all of the wonderful people that contributed, gave their stories, you know, so authentically, so raw, and let's keep it real, for free. You know what I mean? These people did not have to share their story. They did not have to respond back and forth with us. So the fact that they gave us access to them, I'm very grateful for that. And that's why we have a plan to pay it forward, you know, with all proceeds of the book, to go back to the individuals that participated and beyond, you know, just as not only a token of our gratitude, but that's just the right thing to do. As far as the process, something that I've learned in the process for the criminal justice, that this whole system is designed to keep you where you are. Specifically, people that are in prison and in jails, there's this philosophy of you cannot change. You came into this place one way and you will forever be that way. And that's clearly not the case, especially after you all read a lot of these entries. You know, I feel like the powers that be do not allow individuals to grow in prison and in jails. And why not? Because transformation is possible wherever you are. It doesn't matter, you know, how much time you have, how much little time you have. Transformation is possible for anyone, and especially if you want it. So that's one thing that stuck out for me, is that the criminal justice system is designed to keep you exactly where you are. There's no room for change, but we're here to say that that's a lie. Change is possible. Transformation is possible. And you can live your life of purpose where you are, regardless of your circumstance. So that's something that stuck out for me and what I've learned through this process. And also, what I've learned about bookmaking is that I love it. I've been a production manager with my press for 15 years. And although I'm not an editor by profession, I am not a marketing person, I'm not a publicist. Well, I did work in PR, but that's a whole other story. But I am considered the production queen for my house, and I take the aesthetics of books seriously. So I'm very happy that, Ashley, you mentioned you didn't know what paper felt like till you met me. I can tell you the weight, the feel, the color, everything you want to know. My people think I'm like a freak when I go into the bookstore, because I'm just feeling, smelling, like it's my life. I've been in this career space for 15 years. So I was very excited to bring my, you know, knowledge, expertise to this project and share with, you know, the team what it takes to do a, you know, create a book. And here we are, because Unwritten is here, everyone. It is here. And the website will be released where you can purchase a copy. And we are just grateful that we have something that we created for the world, And it's amazing. I think it's amazing. We think it's amazing. We're dope. Unwritten at a web store near you.